had me at cello, cello. You had me at cello. You had me at cello. Oh, you had me at cello. Hi, everybody. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday. And of course, that means it's time for Cello Chat. Today, I have with me Niall O'Loughlin. And it has been a while, Niall, but you look great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
All right, excellent. Well, I know a fair amount, at least, of your background, but not all the viewers necessarily do. And it's always make for such an interesting story how people first encountered the cello. So, can you summarize your trajectory from love for cello all the way to where you are today?
All right. Well, I suppose I started off. Um, Basically, I probably so excited to be musical before I could talk. So I ended up. My parents decided that I would have piano lessons. My mother was a pianist, so and a good one too. And I ended up going to the Royal Irish Academy here in Dublin as a pianist. But my pianism was disappointing, to put it
Mm.
that way. So basically, they in this case decided, well, maybe we'll get him to do something else. We'll get him to play. Well, my aunt decided that a violin was squeaky, so basically better off playing something called a cello. So I had seen cellos before, and I thought they were rather nice. And then basically I started playing the cello, and I had a teacher from New Zealand who Phyllis Young met when we were in Texas, actually, and Carl Bognuda. And then I had a teacher called Betty Barrett, and I was I was enjoying the cello, and I was just getting sort of more serious about it, I suppose. I wasn't great in school, but I think they kind of reckoned that I could actually make a nice sound on the cello and stuff. So I ended up then being put in contact with a very good teacher, Joan Dixon, in Scotland. And I ended up in the Royal Scottish Academy of Music. I was there for 4 years, and I had a great time. I was 18 when I went now, so I was rather young, and I I really enjoyed working with her. She was very inspirational, um, a clear-headed Scot, I would say she was, uh, who had some, worked things out, and was pretty highly regarded, and ended up, one of the most celebrated teachers in Britain. And so I was with her, and she used to go along to Paul Rollins' international string workshops. And as a result of that, I met Dr. Jerry Fishbach, and he was very prominently involved in those, as you know.
Yes.
um, Basically, he had this scholarship program going in the University, Western Michigan University, called the Honor String Quartet. And I ended up applying for that because I was interested in playing chamber music particularly. So I ended up over in Western Michigan, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I had a great time actually. And it was a small school, but it was a very serious kind of a place, And from a point of view of chamber music, it was one of the rare opportunities I've had to do a lot of quartet playing, which was great. And we were in competition, Fish-Off competition, which is a well-known quartet competition, and various other things. And I had a great time there, and I liked being in America too. Anyway, I then headed up back here, and one of the things that made me stay was I liked the variety of repertoire in the orchestra I was in, which was the orchestra, the National Symphony Orchestra of Ireland, and I also there was a cellist coming over from Britain every month. Somebody had set up a system to give masterclasses and lessons, so I could continue doing things like learning concertos or learning sonatas or learning doing chamber music, uh, which for someone in my position, you could end up in an orchestra and not do those things.
Mm.
You could end up just going to your job and not doing anything else really, a particularly busy orchestra. Unfortunately, it wasn't too busy an orchestra, and I did get to do fair bit of chamber music, and I also began teaching, which I found at the time. I mean, I always find teaching challenging, but it was, yeah, I was teaching on a regular basis, and I was enjoying it, and fair bit of chamber music and recitals and stuff on the radio, and also in the concert hall here in Dublin, and I kept up with that basically, and then I was doing the master classes and all that stuff as well. Um, then I ended up getting to another ISW, International String Workshop, and I met somebody called Phyllis Young, as you will remember. And she was quite an extraordinary person. She was the visual aspect of our images and stuff seemed to be very, very, very real. Mm. I've been in the Symphony Orchestra for 13 years, and I was ready to sort of maybe take some time out. Mm. And suddenly, by chance, I met her. We were leaving Graz, and I met Stephen when I was in Graz, and he was going to be going to Texas and was very enthusiastic about the whole process. And I talked about the string project in Austin, and it all sounded very interesting. And apart from anything else, I quite fancied going to Texas and spending a good while there. You know, it was sort of thought it would be a rather enjoyable experience. Yep. So I went, and again, as I said, I found her very, very stimulating. A person who was very much outside the box in terms of cello playing in the cello world, a very open mind, mm-hmm. an incredibly quick and observant mind. Mm. Yes. And I found that she was very widely respected here. My teacher in Scotland knew of her and was very enthusiastic about her. And in fact, all of the teachers, I think, bar one maybe, were mad enthusiasts for what she did and her books in particular, because that's really how people knew her. Mm-hmm. And you know, so it was that was my experience with her. And then I came back, and I was a chamber orchestra was set up, and I was actually principal cello of that for about 16 years. And time has passed here, you know.
Yeah. Was that the Saint Cecilia Orchestra?
I was involved in that, yeah, because Stephen was involved for a while in that. And yeah, we did a lot of Bach cantatas. In fact, I'm doing something with people from that in February. But then I yeah, sort of various. I was busy with that. I wasn't doing that much teaching, and I was doing chamber music, clarinet trio, and various other combinations. So I was busy a lot with playing, and then, as I say, I retired, and then I've done some chamber music. We have some mad musicians in this house, one playing the viola there in the background now, and cellist and a marimba player, and two cellists, and a marimba, and my wife. We've set up some concerts that we've done in Castle, Rathfarnham Castle here in a big house and stuff. A range of repertoire, interesting range of anything and everything. And yeah, and I've done different types of freelance work in the opera, and I've done adjudicating. I've done various other, you know, mix and gather range of work. I have about 15 students now, so I'm busy enough with teaching, and I enjoy the challenge. I suppose for me, how could you say? I suppose every student is different, and it doesn't really matter what level they're at. In a way, it is always, if they're interested, it's always a pleasure to teach someone who's actually interested. And I was teaching someone today, and I think I had to go out, and he suddenly started playing a study he liked to do, which was interesting in itself. I let him do it because I wanted to get his enthusiasm, what was interested, because I think that's the key to an awful lot of getting through to people, sort of what drives them, how the people's minds work differently and their emotions are different.
Yeah.
So that is, in a nutshell, I suppose, what's gone on here in my little part of the world.
Excellent. And let's see, for the viewer, the Stephen that you're referring to is Stephen Sensbach, another remarkable individual who unfortunately passed away about 14 years ago. Wrote a wonderful book surveying a lot of less well-known cello pieces.
French cello sonatas, yeah.
Yeah.
And a real, I would call it sort of a person who delved into things. He liked to explore, because he was an archaeologist. He had done an archaeology degree, and he had that sort of delving quality, which was nice.
Indiana Jones.
Absolute Indiana Jones. Yes,
All right.
He was absolutely, yeah. So and yeah, there's some of the things he's done. He's the kind of person who makes you realize that you probably need 4 or 5 lifetimes to begin to come to grips with all that goes on in the cello world, in terms not just of trying to come to terms with the instrument, but the repertoire that's there. I mean, there is a fair amount of repertoire out there.
There really is.
It's worth exploring.
Yeah. It's
I
staggering.
remember going to a music shop in France with him. There was, I don't know where it was. It was in Lyon, actually.
All right.
And he just sort of went into this place and he was exploring all this old cello music, and it was like ancient stuff. It was fascinating. But that was just so. And then, as I say, he was here, and yes, he got married here, and his children are here, and you know all about that. So yeah, so
yeah. Well, I'd forgotten about the Western Michigan connection.
Yes.
Have you ever crossed paths with Bruce Uchimura?
No.
Okay,
no.
he teaches there and has for a number of years, and he's been a guest on this program too. And great guy, great mind. You two would definitely hit it off if your paths do cross. And Violetta has been a guest in the past too.
Okay, yes. Oh gosh, yes. Yes. She mentions. Yeah,
excellent,
that's good.
Excellent.
Yes,
okay, so now you were segueing a bit already into that question about motivation. Just you're absolutely right. There's definitely a large number, I think, of people for whom, when you find that piece, the repertoire that they just can't get enough of, why then, there you go.
Yes.
Do you have some thoughts on, let's say, the sorts of things that are very useful fundamentals, building blocks for the cello, like scales, that don't necessarily have an inherent attraction to them, shall we say? How do you motivate your students to practice scales and etudes or arpeggios?
I try. There's 2 sides to this. There's the kind of extremely imaginative, emotional reaction side, but there is another side which you do have to try and cultivate, and that is a certain sense that we do have building blocks, and it's not torture, but we actually do have to sort things out sometimes, and sort tuning out, and work a technique, and that there is a pleasure to be gained by mastering those things. And I'm not, most people say that sort of they find sometimes when they feel they have to practice that basically if they feel, well, if I'm going to have to perform this, it better be right. And I don't know. I would always do technical work with people. We'd have to, and I think most people understand that you have to actually, master technical stuff. I can't think of any magical way of changing the nature of the task in hand. I really can't. But I suppose, yeah. one of the things that you can do is with say scales, you can play them in different ways. You can, if you have particular passages in a piece that you're studying, you can adjust. You can work around some of the passage work. Um, you know, you can make it a bit of fun. You can actually do that if you have a mind. That's a good way to build in.
Yeah, it's true. It is fun to take it could be a rhythm or a bowing from repertoire that you're working on and apply it to your scales or something. Not make it the same day in and day out.
Yeah, and there are studies out there that you can. I mean, what was it now? Sebastian Lee, I think I came across, which was a bit like the kind of solos you could get in an opera, cello solo, and would be certain ones could be quite challenging and quite attractive in a weird way. So,
cool.
I know. Well, Starker made recordings, Hopper Studies, and he obviously there was a bit of fun lurking in there somewhere,
Yeah, that's a good point.
So,
all right. So I liked you talked about the visual imagery that Phyllis Young had. I mean, in some ways, there were times that she could get imagery that wasn't just visual, but that was just like all the senses, and it would connect you with. It could be about her the chocolate milkshake kind of metaphor for a certain type.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. It was amazing how much she. It was as though cello playing was on her mind 24/7, and not just, okay, I'm done practicing for now. I set my cello down and now I go on and do other stuff. I think if in the morning, if she was scrambling some eggs, she was thinking about how various motions that she would make would relate to different bowing styles or articulations. It was always on her mind, it seemed.
It was always on, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember she used to give us little bits of, say, matchboxes with things, or bags of stuff. And I remember coming through customs into the US, and they asked me to look at my bag, and I had stuff. I don't know what it was, bits of plastic and bits of things like matchsticks or toothpicks or whatever stuck in a box. And I had to try and explain to these people what exactly was going on here. And it was quite an experience. But yes, she would literally if she was scrambling some eggs or looking at something which other people might consider mundane, she would have looked at it and somehow that would be she would relate it to the world of cello playing. Cello, the art of cello playing.
And also you're pointing out her extreme acute powers of observation, which I think a lot of the really great teachers have, not approximately this, but exactly that,
Yes. I mean, Christopher Bunting was another one too.
Yes.
So I had a number of lessons with him. He was always very generous with his time and very, very thorough. And he was there was this thing about a scale of G major 1 octave he liked to do without vibrato. And you'd play 4 beats, 6 beats, 8 beats, 6 beats, 4 beats. I don't know whether he mentioned that to you, but he really was. He was saying, "I promise me that you'll do this." So, which I still do.
Yeah.
Fairness.
Yeah.
So,
his method books are not like anybody else's.
No. And he was again a very original mind.
Mm-hmm.
Very original.
All right. Now, Neil, I want to talk to you also about stage fright, performance anxiety. There are, I don't know, I'm sure you and I both have seen hundreds of cellists play in our life, and different things about different players stand out to us, of course. And in your case, I was always taken by a number of things, including an aspect of your stage presence. Whether you were ever nervous or not, you seemed just as comfortable as could be on stage with your instrument playing music. So, can you talk about your attitude or background with performance anxiety, and how, when you encounter a student who has issues along those lines, how you
Yeah.
address it?
Well, I have to talk about probably myself first, really, before I could, because that would be the only thing that really might actually help a student, if you like. I mean, I would prepare carefully, I suppose, but I remember in Dublin there was some critics that were quite nasty, and you know, the thought of actually giving a recital or playing, and you thought, my God, if these people come in, they they'll sharpen their pencils before they get going, you know. And but at a certain point, I sort of learned that, hell, I'm just playing for myself in a way. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying I want to play this music, and if you like it, you like it, and if you don't like it, well, too bad. But this is you have to throw caution to the wind as well a bit. Um, and actually, if you're lucky to actually enjoy the music you're playing, in a sense, forget about the audience. Also, to remember that 99% of audiences do like if you talk to them or engage with them, even a sort of a witty remark or something to put them at their ease. And Yeah, it's sort of they're there. Possibly they've made an effort to come, and they want to enjoy themselves. And people are remarkably, shall we say, they will accepting of a performance, a genuine performance. You know, it's if you're entering a competition or something, and you are, this is part of your career, and it's, people are scrutinizing you, ruthlessly. That's a different kettle of fish. But again, I suppose people say, well, if it works, it works. But we are in an art where you're sailing close to the wind, and um, people don't realize how difficult it can be. But at the same time, um, I suppose I just say, well, I just, this is what I do, and just I try and enjoy it. I find humor in some way a good way of relaxing either myself or the public.
Both.
And yes, both. And say in student position, say students performing, and if I was hovering around, I would try and keep the atmosphere light. And if things go wrong, well, we can always deal with that again. We can always talk and see what happened, but it's not the end of the world, you know? So you end up, as it were, um, just enjoying it. And trying to really, really probably actually acting and enjoy as if you're enjoying it. There's a bit of acting involved. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to say, I have to act the relaxed person to become, you end up saying, actually, yeah, I am relaxed, you know? I mean, there can be habits people have learned unwittingly before performing, which can raise tension. So it's important to have your own way prior to a performance of clearing the decks a bit.
Yes.
So you're the boss of your own schedule. So you're not sort of being rushed to do something else or having someone else knock you off course or whatever. And yeah, I've been lucky that way. I have been in situations where I have found things. I generally feel I like to prepare as much as I possibly can if things are tricky, um, and be quite fussy about that.
Yes.
once at a certain point, though, I say, okay, it'll be okay. It'll be fine. And just, if you enjoy it, it'll be better, you know? So I think you have to, if you've done your preparation, you have to be quite fussy about that. That, you know, stuff, usually stuff that you don't expect to go wrong with. There'll be that passage that you thought, you know, this is going to be a nightmare. This is not going to work. And it does. And then
because you spent so long on that passage.
or some it's quite simple thing, and your mind slips for a second, you know, and you think, why not, you know?
It was in first position. How'd I mess that up?
Exactly, it's simple two in a bar, and I don't know. So yes, I suppose you do get to a point. I suppose you've done a lot of being on stage or being in a performance situation.
Yeah, that's true. Repetition
does help a lot.
But I do, over the years, there is a certain, it's almost as though there are different types of performance anxiety. There's certain situations in which I think, all right, this particular student would benefit a lot from going over to our theater department and taking an introduction to acting class. And in many cases, they really do. And one of the things that strikes me as so different in acting and performing a musical instrument is when you go and you're going to work on acting out a particular scene. I mean, if it's in English, if it's in a language that you're fluent in, the amount of time that you spend on the technique of pronouncing the words, getting the words in the right order and everything is incredibly small. And all the rest of the time is on the delivery. Now, wait a second. Wouldn't this be even more effective if we did this with the time, or we did this with the inflection and bring out this word more, you know? Whereas so often with the cello in our hands, if we're not careful, it can be the other way around, where it feels like it's 99% making sure that you nail this exact shift and that this passage is clean and clear. Oh yeah, and I also I have direction to the line. It has meaning. It's there, you know. But it's the other way around if we're not careful. And it's so liberating when you go out on stage to be driven by the meaning of what you're wanting to convey, and the notes are they're just the vehicle, rather than, you know, having to feel like you've got to second guess your every muscle and finger every moment.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I did learn from actually being in a theatre context was they are very interested in delivery. Most of us, when we speak, and certainly in my case, I tend to tail off at the end of sentences. And they said, you can't do that. You have to deliver, and you have to be clear and speak over there. And that was important. And teachers would have said that to us, you know, that you have to play the person in the last row, as it were, you know. One of the things, some people, I think, physical preparation for performance that sort of actors would do in terms of breathing and in terms of just physical movement or whatever, to kind of relax, well, to free yourself up and possibly focus your mind a bit to that kind of side of things. I found it interesting also because I had to remember lines, and this is something I thought I'd left behind in school or something, you know. But I actually have to, and it was important to do so. They were not, you couldn't fluff or improvise this particular play. I had to remember the lines and deliver them, and remember where I was on the stage, make sure I wasn't moving in front of someone, or, you know, this stuff. It was tough, but enjoyable. It is interesting to embrace other arts forms.
Yes.
Because you learn an awful lot, you know, from them. As it were, the kind of music we play, as you say, we do have our obsessions about certain aspects of cello world, you know, and we do end up being trained to focus on the technical side of it. But people, unless it's conveying something that, shall we say, a musical idea, a musical experience, people aren't interested if you've got all the technical passages correct, and that's it, you know.
Right. They want to be moved. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but so yeah, I think even visually going to. I remember we in Lyon, we went with Christopher Bunting to an art gallery or whatever, and being there with someone like that was a pleasure because of his mind and how he'd react to.
Style with your students. I mean, I know that's it's hard to do in a nutshell, but can you summarize your style, your approach?
Goodness. I think while every child is an individual, you do have to tailor your lessons, or my lessons anyway, to, as it were, cover most of the material that you need to get done. And you know, in a sense, I would start with technical stuff and then that was that's the sort of, if you like, day-to-day methodology sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I when I get new people, I have to try and probe how much they actually know, because sometimes what they're playing doesn't match where they are in terms of their development. So you have to kind of explore, test, and generally, yeah, explore just this person's cello world, and I like to think you know, they don't have to become professional, you know, celebrity cellist,
Right.
but it's theirs, it's for them, and
Yes.
they can, as it were, the more they put in, the greater the pleasure they will get. And it doesn't mean that they'll end up playing the most stunning standard necessarily, but they will have taken themselves on a journey with, say, a particular piece of music or whatever, in the broader sense of their exploring of cello, which will enrich their lives. And if they can play change, might be helpful. Hopefully, you know, that's you know, that's the best I can hope for. Um, you know, I am probably eclectic in terms of different methodologies and different material. Anything that works and is good and useful, that frees people up and so on, I think,
Yes.
is it will be used, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would cover up sort of in terms of motivating people. Um, it's like you do get situations where you have parents who want the children to be doing exams, and in some cases it can be the motivating thing that actually helps them, but in other cases it just creates the stress, and you have to find that balance. It's good to have them perform and have challenges, but you have to strike a balance. Yeah, I think most people, what I've heard of these talks, and generally listening to people, reading people, most people nowadays, I think, consider you're dealing with an individual and have to some extent, to tailor what you say to that. So
nice. Yeah, that's great. Well, Neil, so what's coming down the pike for 2024? Performances or projects? What's on the docket?
I'll continue on my current diet. I get some freelance work in the orchestral world, and not that much as symphony orchestra now, but sometimes. And other people, I've had a few Bach cantata business, because in the chamber orchestra we were in, or I was in, we played all the Bach cantatas over 10 years. So that was quite that was quite a part of my life that period.
There's a lot of big cello moments in a lot of those.
Oh yeah, he was very one of these people. This week I have a good cellist, so I'm going to make him earn his money or whatever. And he cello piccolo parts as well, which can be a bit insane. Yeah, you wouldn't know what's coming up. But a mind like Bach's, I suppose, he was again outside his time in a sense. He could do things with music that were kind of was very free in his own way. It was just extraordinary, quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll be doing more stuff, chamber music in this madhouse. I'm certain of it. And we'll see. I as I say, stuff comes up.
Yes.
And you get notions as well, which is kind of nice.
Yes, it is.
So yeah.
All right. Well, best of luck with it all.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm enjoying the stage I'm at now. As I say, and coming out of an orchestral life, it takes a few years to adjust after 40 odd years of playing. So, and with COVID as well, COVID was weird.
Yeah.
And with an orchestra, we were to some extent playing in smaller groups, masks, and I mean, I taught with Zoom, which I found challenging, to put it mildly. But I, as I say, I'm glad that I've finished that phase in my life, because I'm now freer to relate to the cello and my cello world on my terms, rather than working for performances that somebody else decided should be done. You know what I mean? So that I think is very liberating in its own way. So yeah, so that's where we're at.
Terrific. All right, thanks so much, Neil. It's always great chatting with you, and this is I'm looking forward to every time I do. Actually, I look forward to hearing my students' reactions and takeaways and thoughts after each of these, and can't wait to hear their thoughts on your ideas as well. But it's great talking with you.
Well, thank you very much.
A pleasure. All right, and all of you out there, happy practicing all week. We'll see you this time next Friday. Take care.
You had me at